Hey, it's Drybear. I have taken part in 2 of the alpha tests for Pax Day, as well as the preview week, and of course the early access launch for the game. So today, since a lot of people have been asking me, I'm going to go ahead and review the game from my perspective after playing through many of their test periods, the building, the experience, and growing through the process of the game, and generally where I think the game sits right now and where it's going in the future. Now, I'll start out by saying that I actually enjoy the game. I have a lot of fun playing this game. It's why I've played multiple tests, and generally I like survival games, I like crafting games, and I like grinding games, so this kind of fits my style. However, despite the fact that personally, subjectively, I enjoy the game, as a reviewer and as a content creator, I personally can't really recommend this in its current state. Now, if you are someone who really is excited about the game, you know what you're getting into, you know it's an early access, and you like these kinds of building games, and you like what you've seen, then I would say go ahead and get it and support the devs and go along in that process, and you'll get a lot done in that time period. However, if you're any level below that level of interest, I would say that the game is not really something that you'll want to jump right into. You'll probably want to take your time and jump into it as things progress. But let's dive into why it is that I think that way. Currently, as it stands right now, the feeling that I get from Pax Day in its early access state, it has improved greatly over the last few months, by the way. I know some people say that it hasn't really changed much. I don't think that's the case. I think that the performance has been getting better, the presentation has been getting better, and the crafting has been getting better over time throughout the course of them doing multiple alpha tests. However, I think that this game, its overall vibe gives me a feeling of the launch of New World, in that when New World first came out, I think that games like New World and games like Pax Day have this problem where they have a very linear path through content and then a sheer cliff drop off once you get past that content. It's kind of like the New World syndrome, I guess you could say. And that is that when New World came out and when Pax Day comes out, everything's new. There's all this content you haven't gone through. There's things that you haven't seen. And especially in Pax Day, there's all these tiers of crafting, recipes, materials. You don't even have a base set up. You don't have a clan set up. All of these factories aren't built. And so you actually have this very, linear path ahead of you of grinding that you need to do, of collecting materials, forging them into new materials, creating new things, unlocking new recipes, going back and building new things, crafting new things, putting on new armor, getting new weapons. And once you finally get through all that and you're geared enough, you can start exploring some of the PvE encounters that you have outside of where you are. However, I feel like there's going to be the New World drop-off in that if you like the game, after a couple weeks or a month, maybe 2, you're going to hit this point where there is no more recipes for you to pick up. There are no more encounters for you to encounter. And from that standpoint, there isn't really anything keeping you interested in the game because you've kind of conquered it all. Whereas most of other MMOs and like MMO style experiences, there's usually some kind of core loop that's keeping you interested, right? There's something you're trying to accomplish, some long-term goal that you have, somewhere you're trying to go, rather than like games like this, like Pax Day, it feels like you're climbing a mountain, and when you get to the top of the mountain, there aren't any other mountains around, and so you kind of just get bored. From that standpoint as well, so I think that that's kind of where Pax Day is right now. If you like the crafting, it's most of the experience. In fact, most of what you're seeing on screen is what you're going to get from Pax Day. There is still a tremendous amount of low-hanging fruit and quality of life improvements for the game. There are things that don't snap well when you're trying to build. There's delays and lags in some of the animations and the building process. Some of the damage doesn't feel very poignant or very oomphy, so you like get bit by a wolf and then you take damage 2 seconds later, or the wolf bites the air and 3 feet to its left, it hits something. There's just a lot of weirdness and jankiness to the way things move and animate and the way things connect, especially in a networked environment when you have latency going between characters and between enemies. So that, I think, is going to be something that if they can improve it, that's not an easy thing to improve by any means. It is a fundamental aspect of the development of the game, and so that's kind of just be something you have to accept. But because that is the combat and the overall experience of the game, I think that limits the long-term benefits of it, right? Say they want to, I think once they get past this New World experience where they, once you conquer the mountain, there's nothing to do, they're going to hit this point where they're going to have to start redesigning the game or redeveloping it or making a major shift. They might go for adding a lot of dungeons or PvE content. Maybe they go full dive into PvP. Who knows? But the place that they take Pax Day next, like going into Q3 this year, Q4 this year, 2025 and beyond, they're going to have to figure out what they're going to want to do with it. And if the direction they want to take taken in is more combat focused. I think the combat style and way they've implemented combat in this game just doesn't really cut it for modern combat. It's very slow, it's very one-dimensional, it's super delayed, the feedback is pretty poor, and so it's kind of like, you're usually like, you just go up to an enemy and you hit the enemy until it dies or until you die. You can block and there are abilities, but it's very disjointed and janky. So if they wanted to do like arenas or PvP or like battlegrounds and stuff like that, I think the combat just doesn't function well enough to operate at that scale. And I think if they wanted to do major PvE encounters, there's a lot of pathing issues with the enemies and how they move around in the world, how they register attacks, and the way the networked area functions with some of the AI that just makes it feel like it's not quite up there. So from that standpoint, then, the biggest thing that you take away from this is that the primary selling point for PAX Day is going to be the building, the atmosphere, and the collaboration. It's almost like you're focused on playing Factorio or something. You're building something together, you're automating pipelines, you're putting things together. Because most of the process of collecting materials, forging things, and crafting is extremely long. Like, real world time, some of the recipes are 20 minutes before they finish. Some of them are an hour or more. Like, even just getting, like, the major thing that you get to tier up your gear is collecting iron ore and then, melting wood into charcoal and then taking that ore and the charcoal to smelt iron ingots. The process when you have those materials to turn the iron ore and the charcoal into iron ingots is one full real life hour. So you set it, and then an hour later, 60 minutes of your real life time, those 20 ingots are done. And that's why you end up having to create 5 to 10 to 20 furnaces so you can have them running all the time. The benefit, the only good saving grace for this aspect, other than just it being a very big time sink, is that it is an always online game, which means that if you log off, all of those 1 hour timers are still running, which means that you kind of create this social environment, which is what they're going for with this game, and this collaboration environment. You might have someone collecting materials to start the furnaces and kilns, and then you have that keep going and going and going, and maybe people have to log out, or maybe you have to go farm something, but you always have it running, and you're creating this industry, almost like a real world town would. Like, maybe you have someone full-time on blacksmithing, or someone full-time on going out and getting wood materials, or someone full-time hunting and getting hides so you can turn it into leather and leather gear and stuff like that. But it is a full-time job, and you kind of need people doing it. So from that standpoint, I think it kind of makes it almost required to get the optimal experience to play in a group. So if you're playing solo, you don't want to join a clan, you're going to be a lot slower than everyone else, and there's going to be a lot of time wasted of you trying to do everything yourself, and you just won't reach the same heights. I think there's some cool things that come out of that from the group play, but the solo play is kind of a downside. On top of that, most games like this that are like build your own base, getting your area fleshed out, or having you collecting materials and building up an industry, most games like this are usually available for custom servers, private servers, and custom settings, right? You usually would have like a V Rising or a POW World or something like that, where you can have your own, like maybe you want to accelerate some things, maybe you want to decelerate some things and make the experience your own. But because PAX Day is an MMO, there is no custom servers, there are no custom settings. You are in an MMO server with other people that's always online, and you can't like customize your experience that way. So I think there's going to be people going into PAX Day that want that experience to be able to say, okay, cut down the iron ingot time from 1 hour to 10 minutes, or maybe make it longer because we want to have a realistic thing, or we're going to have some kind of race or whatever. You can't have that in PAX Day as it stands right now. You have to play by the rules and function on their MMO server, which I think is going to be a negative for some people. Now, one thing that I think they're envisioning for the game and why all of this functions the way that it does is I think they want to see people progress and create their own world over time. So the gameplay trailer that we got kind of shows this, where you start out just chopping trees and getting things, is where we're at right now, but eventually people work together and collaborate and can start making full towns by connecting their plots together, buying more plots, collecting more land, and doing all of that. So I think that's kind of what they're looking for. And by the way, in some of the alphas, this started to show its head. I had moments where clans would band together and create these super castles and then start blocking off bridges or mountain passes and charging tolls or encouraging PvP like old school Daok, where you'd have to fight over areas and actually get people to engage in conflict in order to get through certain areas. Like this, they'd build a giant gate or a wall, block off and say, hey, give me 10 gold if you want to go through. Otherwise, we're not going to let you through because we own this land. And stuff like that, I think, is interesting and is part of the social aspect of what I think they're looking for in Pax Dei, building all of this, creating your own community, creating your own clan. Now, if you are interested, I recommend looking at the what is essentially like the working document or the manifesto for Pax Dei and what they're trying to create with this game, because it might not be in line with what you're expecting. There have been a lot of questions around the length of time required to craft certain things, to make certain things, and how to work together on some. The devs have explicitly responded to saying that it's what they want it to be. They want it to take a long time, and they want to encourage you to work together. It is supposed to be a social experience. And so, again, back to my point of it not feeling great in solo, if things take a long time, you know, like in real life, you've had a nomadic tribe come together. If everyone worked together and delegated tasks, the time taken doesn't matter as much. But if you're by yourself and you have to do every trade yourself in a town, it's going to take forever and you're going to waste a bunch of time. So they do want you to group up, make multiple stations, make multiple processing plants, and work together and delegate tasks to accomplish everything that you need to do, which means they're trying to do that. But I can link this down below in the description. This is their frequently asked questions. They talk a lot about what they're looking for long term, what their monetization scheme is going to be like. Ultimately, they do want to make this game a subscription-based game. They just don't want it to be that way in early access. So that's something to be aware of as well, and all of that coming together. So what the experience you're getting right now with Pax Dei is essentially what they want for the game, and they envision that people will come together and start building massive towns over the course of many months. But my feeling is that after a week or two or a month, people get to the point where they've gone through all the tiers, there's nothing left to craft, they've built what they want to build, and all that's left is to like add some roads and things like that, and there's nothing left for them to want to do. Again, there are enemies in the area, there is some PvE, you can craft gear, but it's very, very basic and bare bones, and the AI is very simplistic, and the combat is a little janky. So the focus primarily is on the building, the survival, and the sandbox aspect for itself. And for that reason, I think that the game is a little more niche for something that's like $40 to buy into, and eventually we'll have a monthly subscription fee. Like, I feel like this is going to be hard for them to build up to a massive base, and I think they really need to have a strong plan for what they're going to do in quarter 3, quarter 4 this year, like going into the fall, because people are going to chew through all the content they have and have nothing left to do. But if you like the game, if you like the vision, if you like what they're doing, you can support the game by picking up the early access. And again, if you like what you see and you're down to just grind wood and ore and flax and berries and make vegetable stew all day, and you really like that because that's a very specific thing for people, I enjoy doing it, then pick it up, play it for like a couple weeks and enjoy it and see where they go with it. If you're any less than that level of excitement, I would wait, watch, see what they do. Keep in mind there are other games coming like Once Human, which is also a sandbox crafting survival MMO, which has a lot more content in it in my perspective. It's not medieval, it is sci-fi, so it's different. So there's other options out there if you want to, but that's my take on Pax Dei, is that it's very niche for what they're trying to do, and I think it whether it's intentional or not, or it's something they wanted for the game, I think it alienates the people that like their custom play with friend experience, where they can just have custom settings, do custom things in the game, and build it that way. I think it also alienates the solo players that just want to do everything themselves, because everything takes so dang long to accomplish that if you're playing by yourself, you're going to be doing it for like this. Your primary gameplay is just going to be what you see on screen: crafting, processing, gathering, crafting, processing, gathering, doing that all the time, setting up all your crafting stations and processing stations overnight, logging back in, crafting, processing, gathering, and you're just doing that over and over. You can create some cool stuff for sure, but I think there's a long way to go for Pax Dei, and I think you'll hear a lot of people say this as well, is that the primary thing for Pax Dei is that it has a good foundation. It has a lot of potential, but as of right now, it's not the second coming of survival sandbox MMO that we've been waiting for, but it has the possibility to go there if they really buckle down and put a lot of really great things into it, and also improve the baseline that's there. A lot of quality of life is needed. A lot of low-hanging fruit for just general feel-good things can make the game a lot better. And if they want to stick to this long process, forced social encounters, I think they'll need a lot more systems, visibility, and more content to make that really thrive and flourish. And they're gonna have to accept that some players are just not gonna like that that's the vision of the game. But let me know what you think about Pax Dei down below. Are you playing the early access? Are you enjoying it? And what would you think about the future going forward? If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people. And don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.